Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blaze podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, a Stabby Chaos Coordinator, and one Chief Shenanigator, geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. This is a bonus episode, people, because it's got two things. My favorite history nerd wrote it, and it's got mechs. So I'm going to throw this cover up. We'll come back to it. But, I mean, like, what's not to love, right? You got like a giant stompy robot, my friend. So, robots, giant stompy robots, and history nerds in one place. Like we had to do this episode, and I didn't want to make you wait. So we're here doing a bonus episode, and you're welcome. And don't hate me if you're late for work because you listened. And with that out of the way, Declan, do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers at home?
Sure. I'm Declan Finn. I'm the author of 40 plus books. I have lost count. Been nominated for a few Dragon Awards. I write in pretty much any genre that's not nailed down, between fantasy, sci-fi, urban fantasy, thrillers, mysteries, blah, blah, blah. A few histories as well.
So. I know you wrote actual histories, or you wrote historical fiction?
No, I've written history. I've got one history on, what was it? Basically, let's call it the Songs of the IRA for short version, even though some of these songs predate it by 100 years, or 150, depending on where you start. I've got one book on history with it's around. You probably remember the Pious books. Those were so historically based that I just took the original papers I wrote around them and put them into their own book.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. And I even, let's just say I helped my father write his philosophy textbook, at least the last 2 editions.
That counts. All right. So it's kind of in your DNA to write stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so before we get started, this is the Blast and Blaze podcast, so we do have to do the religion question. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
All right, Fringe, Warehouse 13 for Eureka.
Warehouse 13. It was fun.
Absolutely. They were all fun. Have you seen Fringe at all?
Tried Fringe, got maybe 2 seasons into it. I gave up somewhere around the time they introduced Leonard Nimoy.
Okay, that's fair.
And Eureka, I could never find. I wound up with Warehouse 13, but not the companion series. So,
Eureka's really good. It's irreverent. It's basically making fun at the smart people that can't get out of their own way, but also it kind of had a healthy respect for them for being so smart they can do all the cool whiz bang things. So I thought it was kind of a fun approach to it. Fringe, I like the concept more than anything, so I stuck with it. But I can see what you're talking about, where it went a little wonky on the storytelling. But I'll forgive a lot for a good concept.
Hey, the most interesting thing about that show was John Noble, just watching his acting range go from threatening to timid house cat to, everything in between.
And it definitely played with some real deep moral questions. How far would you go as a father? And then the other part of that with Fringe, because if you don't know, dear listener, basic story is his kid gets sick, dies. He basically, in his grief, figures out how to open a portal to another parallel universe, steals that version of his kid, brings it back to his universe, and now both fathers have experienced tragedy and the fallout. And so it's got some interesting moral questions overarching it. And then who are we really? When you ask those questions, nurture versus nature, or nature versus nurture, I guess is the order most people put it. But that's a question as old as time, really.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. I like that, but I don't think that's necessarily distinctly them. I find a lot of modern fiction is really surface level. So I like anything that goes a little deep.
Oh, yeah. Well, the amount of, I'll take even surface level stories from 20 years ago, which are better than some of the crap being put out today.
So another one that looked at parallel universe. Did you ever watch Sliders? Sort of like Quantum Leap, but a parallel dimension.
Oh, yeah. I followed Sliders for a season or 2 until it just became very clear that it was going nowhere very fast. So, of course, as soon as we gave up on the show, they started touting an overarching plot of some sort, which I could never get into. So
That's basically the trajectory Quantum Leap took too.
ha. Oh yeah. Well, yes. Quantum Leap. Last episode. Maybe we should actually have some kind of overarching plot. Canceled.
Well, I mean, Quantum Leap ends with him going home, but he is the only guy to ever give birth because he jumped into that woman. So there's that. And then, of course, you got the iconic "Oh boy" when he looks in the mirror, which Mickey Mouse would approve of the way he did it.
Hey, Scott Bakula.
And some of the 80s and 90s sitcoms had some really wonky acting, but it was so cringe it was good.
Yeah, and Scott Bakula did have some range, and although I think one of the more entertaining series of the last 20 years was possibly Chuck, in terms of
the one where he gets the supercomputer in his brain.
Yep, and the main character's father was Scott Bakula. His mother was Sarah Connor. And of course the writers were nerds, so you had to give Linda Hamilton the line, "Come with me if you want to live."
And was the guy from Firefly was in there as one of the agents? Jane?
Adam Baldwin.
Adam Baldwin, there we go.
Who has no relation to any of the other Baldwins. And if you want a funny anecdote, I can do that, but some other time. Maybe a little bit later.
But yeah, that was a good one. I really did like in the play on, I think it was supposed to be Best Buy meets Circuit City.
Yes.
Was the store. I like the idea of the store like that was a front for a government agency, because I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. I don't think they're smart enough to do that in any government in the world, but I wouldn't put it past them if they could.
Oh yeah, and let's face it, that was not an ad for Best Buy.
No, but they had that real band. They formed a band. Two of the characters in it that actually became a real touring band after the series ended. That it was one of those ones, again, it was so cringy and bad that it was good that people liked it, because they liked not liking it, if that makes sense.
After fashion, yes.
Yeah, so, all right, because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters Blaze podcast, and we do want to relive our childhood, the Addams Family, Beetlejuice, or Ghostbusters?
The John Aston Addams Family.
Okay.
The original black and white TV show, because it was just crazy enough to be hilarious, just short enough to be tolerable, and John Aston was wonderfully off the wall as Gomez. I liked Raul Julia, but that's because I'm not sure there's anything I didn't like Raul Julia in.
It didn't take itself too seriously. I think later editions tried to.
Well, I've stopped after the Raul Julia Christina Ricci version. I don't know any other edition, so maybe I lucked out.
The later one with Wednesday Addams leaned a lot into like the Poison Ivy vibe of extreme psychosis is sexy and, dark tainted soul. And I get it, but it's one of those tropes that's good in short doses. But
it sounds like what I heard they did to Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yes.
Part 2. It's like, wait, you took a light, fluffy sitcom and you decided to make it, hi, we're going to actually deal with witches and witchcraft and satanic nonsense. It's like, did you even see the original show? Do you understand the original show? What drugs were you on during Netflix? But it's Netflix. They probably have more cocaine there than Miami.
Yeah, the other part of the problem with that one, because I tried to watch that because I used to watch the original one with my sisters, is one, it took itself too seriously. That's to me a cardinal sin of fiction. Is if you take yourself too seriously, you tend to lose the plot quicker.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't fit the story arc of the main character, and if you have the story plot you have, it makes what's supposed to be your main character very unsympathetic. Because she's out there, murdering and stabbing and a witchcrafting, and I'm supposed to care about her why. Unless you're saying all those things that are bad are now good, in which case turning the paradigm on its head has value at times, but sometimes doing it just to do it ends up with characters nobody likes.
Amen to that.
And like I said, breaking the rules is all well and good as long as you know why you're breaking them and it's for a plot purpose, not just because I'm going to be different. So, alrighty. So last time you were on, you talked about your favorite dinosaur. So today we're going to mix it up a little bit. And what is your favorite zoo animal?
Mostly just the predators, bears, large cats. There's something about the way they move that's almost graceful, even with a bear.
Okay. Any favorite kind of bear or just all the bears?
Well, nothing in particular, as long as they're on the other side of the bars. Unless, of course, it's a panda, in which case it's like, who cares if there's bars or not? They barely remember to wake up.
Yeah. Okay.
There are some days I worry about pandas under the heading of, if people were around to make sure they kept breeding, would there be a species?
At this point, I honestly don't know.
Exactly.
And I don't know how much of that is human intervention, because nature's going to do what nature does, and I don't know. It's a weird ethical question about what you do about it, but that's another episode for another. And I might be able to tie that into ethical terraforming as a concept for panel. In fact, I'm writing that down.
Not to mention you get somebody with a degree in animal behavior.
Yeah, and we've got I've interviewed a lady who's she's over in the UK. She writes mill sci-fi, but she's also, by training, she is a veterinarian as her day job. So, I mean, she's not quite an animal behaviorist, but I think that's as close as you're going to get, since part of her job involves not getting eaten or bit, right?
That'll help.
It does help if you're a vet and you can avoid getting bitten by your patients. So,
always.
I'm told that's a good thing. So, all right, because we're both history nerds. And that we've, every other episode we've been on, I've gotten letters about, us being left unsupervised together because we went long and then we talked about all kinds of random esoteric stuff. But I had fun, so I'm not complaining. Which is your favorite historical era to draw inspiration from?
It rotates, but most recently it has been the last 100 years or so. I have gotten, since I have moved to Texas, I have fallen into, GunTube, and a lot of it works with historical weaponry as well as modern day, and it's like, what do you mean I could just order a cannon off of Amazon? Things like that. But just watching improvisation from the gun trucks of Vietnam to simple, straightforward mechanical genius, just looking at the internal workings of the Maxim machine gun. So this is probably more history of technology, to be specific, but mostly the last 100 years or so.
Okay. Yeah, I like a lot of that. Have you fallen into the deep, deep well of Gun Jesus? That's the Forgotten Weapons YouTube channel where he looks at all kinds of the obscure. He's called Gun Jesus because if you look at him with his long hair and just the way he dresses, he could be on the Christmas parade as Jesus.
I've seen a few of Ian's videos, and I've tripped over him in other people's videos, but I've only seen like maybe 3 of them. One where he's looking at something World War II. It was not the Sturmgewehr, but a predecessor. One of the more recent guns, which was a Heckler & Koch G33, which looks like something stormtroopers should be shooting. But they only made a few thousand of those. But it looked cool.
He does a lot of prototype weapons that never made mass distribution, or rare weapons. He works a lot with the Rock Island arsenal. And I think that's in Rhode Island.
Yeah, I believe it.
So it's a lot of obscure stuff. The hard part of watching that is keeping your credit card away, because you see that and I mean, I don't need a house. I could buy that.
Yeah, I have not used a lot of Gunbroker. There are people I know who is like, yes, I shouldn't be drinking at 3 a.m. while going through Gunbroker. I go broke that way.
Yeah, the fun ones, he's also done some where he actually goes testing the weapons. So he's taken some of the small mortars and cannons that he had, that he's test fired those out in the desert. He's fired, ironically, you mentioned the Maxim gun before, and done the reloading. He's actually written a book on some of the weapons of history in the progression. It's more pictorial than anything, but that's really, you want to look at all the shiny pictures, right? Like that's what you're getting it for. So I'm not even hating on it, but yeah, I like his content. But again, you got to lock the credit card away before you hit play, because they do link. Because if you're watching the current videos, or you watch the old ones when the item's already sold, because if you're watching the current video, the item is currently on sale at whatever arsenal he's viewing it at. So it's like, what's $40,000 among friends, but it's a cool gun.
Well, that's one hell of a way to make your money.
Yeah, it's weapons that someone's had in their barn for however long, and like, oh look, this might be worth money now. Although they had all those picker shows that were popular about 20 years ago, and now everyone's like, I wonder if I have treasure in my barn. And now the concept died up because everyone's checking their own damn barns now. What Grandpa left them,
Hey, way back in the day, this was a while back, my grandmother had a cellar full of china, and by that I mean it was, let's say it was a cabinet 6 feet tall, 6 feet wide, about yay deep, and I know because I had to clear out those shelves.
So for you listening, that's about 3 feet deep. He gestured,
and yeah, it's back in the 80s, this stuff was worth $120 a plate. Then, got it out, got it all cleaned up back in 2010s. And yeah, well, we've got this thing called the internet now, and it's readily available with an internet search. So yeah, if you can get $20 for it, that's nice. And it's like, okay, well, that's interesting.
Well, the other part of that is if you wait it out, it becomes old as new again. And I jokingly used my Sleeping Legion series book cover. It was stock art that everybody on the indie side was using for a while. So like everybody went and got different art to replace it. And my publisher left it. And now I'm the only one left with it. So now it's retro. So it's one of those things that sometimes if you wait it out.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about stock art.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's, it's one of those ones where you get artists that'll do the photo manipulation with like Photoshop or whatever other, I'm sure there are better programs, but the equivalent is digital assets. So
oh yeah, it's hilarious. Funny thing with this one is back when I self-published my Pious Man thrillers, this wound up being a stock art cover I bought at almost random, and fast forward 5-6 years, I have a publisher, I have an artist, and this freaking stock art shows up again. So it happens.
You've written a lot of yourself. Now you're playing in, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, the Land and Sea universe that Blaine Pardoe put together, who's famous for his BattleTech stuff. And now he's doing his own version. Well, not his own version. He's taking the concepts he was famous for, and he's built his own sandbox. But
go ahead.
There's a lot of other franchises out there. So if you had any franchise, obviously Land and Sea is not it because you're doing it now. So, but any other franchise, if they said, "Hey, Declan, will you write in this franchise?" What is one you'll stop everything to write for?
Well, you pay me enough. I'll write.
I'm asking more nostalgia, the nerd inside of you. Which one would you get all giddy about?
Well, let me see. Babylon 5 without a problem. Or, hey, you said, hi, we're going to go back to pre-Disney Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's the point where it's like, okay, cool. Item 1, give me Timothy Zahn's phone number. I want to talk with him and make notes because I want to play with his characters and not destroy them. Unlike some people. Babylon 5, pre-Disney Star Wars. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, pretty much it. I've only recently gotten into Stargate SG-1.
Oh, I love that.
And by recently, I mean start of this year.
Okay.
Nothing's on television. We've got one of these TV channels that'll run nothing but old television, and it's 20 years old now. I hate to break it to you. And although it's interesting watching some of the, gee, this is very odd. What channel did this start on? Because it both looks like low budget, but still not Sci-Fi Channel. And
Yeah, I don't know where it started, but
HBO, Showtime, one of those.
yeah, I know I watched. So it started with Stargate. Started with the movie that did really well, and then they ended up bringing it back, and then they did. So there's Stargate the movie. Then different actors came in and they did Stargate SG-1, which most TV series back then, they ended up calling the first episode a movie, but it's really 2 episodes back to back with no commercials, which essentially is a movie length. And I watched that one with the kid thinking, when he was like 10, thinking, oh, this was on in the 90s. We're totally cool. And then, the first thing is you get this lady sitting up out of the sarcophagus, full TNA. And I'm like, ooh, cover the eyes. How was this on television? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, because it was on Skinamax. It wasn't on daytime television at first. It went to daytime television later.
Yeah, I was, trust me, I was very confused when it's like, this scene got very blurry all of a sudden. Why is that? Oh, okay. I had to do some research, but
yeah, I own the box set of all of it, so
that'll do it.
So I've got the unblurred versions because they didn't have to worry about television. And then the other part of it is you just assume that because we think 80s 90s it was more wholesome. And so I have made the mistake of sitting down with a rated R movie thinking R back then couldn't have been that bad. And I'm like, oh, nope, can't watch this with the kids. So, I think some of it is nostalgia biases us to what was out there. I think sometimes there was just as much weirdness out there if you knew where to look.
Oh, good God. You want some stuff you probably shouldn't show the kids. There are some episodes of Miami freaking Vice of all things.
I believe it.
It's like, hi, we're going to have an episode on snuff films. Okay, this came out of left field.
At least they were saying it was bad and their job was to stop the bad guys. I'll take it.
This is true. Although it left it just vague enough because back then snuff films were a rumor.
Yeah, I think it mostly was. I don't.
Yeah, I'm almost entire. To my knowledge, nobody had proven that any such thing ever happened.
And I think it's one of those urban legends.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But and the episode was interesting because it ended with, it might just be all in Don Johnson's head.
Yeah, I like Stargate though. That was on my list. I'd stop everything to write for them. And Primeval.
I find Stargate, at least definitely in the first season, it felt like very original Star Trek, where like, wait, we've got, MacGyver with guns being extra snarky, and he's having philosophical discussions. Like, this is weird. And some of them were like, yes, well, we're going to have a planet where an entire generation is 30 days from birth to death. And it's like, that's interesting. And it kind of makes you wonder, where did all these writers go? And, unfortunately, by the time we got to Stargate Universe, it's, what do you mean John Scalzi wrote through this?
Yeah, I like Stargate Universe. I know that's an unpopular opinion. I do think it tried to be more realistic in the vein that the reimagining of Battlestar Galactica as it was. But I still liked it. I know it didn't really get a chance to get its feet out under it before they canceled it. But yeah, I would stop everything for for Stargate, and I would stop everything for Primeval, which is sort of time loop, time anomalies meet prehistoric creatures in modern world. So I really enjoyed that series. It was on BBC Europe and then BBC Canada.
It sounds like you would have had a lot more fun with the Jurassic World movies and the people who did Jurassic World movies.
Well, so Jurassic World is cloning, and they brought everything back, right? In the primeval, a lot of the cryptid lore, all of that comes from time anomalies where actual prehistoric creatures are crossing over into our timeline from the past, and their whole job was to sort of shoo them back across the time dividing before it closes. And they have to get them back without killing them, because if they kill them, the butterfly effect, essentially.
Oh yeah.
And so it's an interesting one. Went a little off the rails at the last season, but they knew they weren't getting another season, so they just went even more expensive because they were canceling it not for lack of viewership, but because it cost so much to make. In the 90s.
Not the first series.
All right, and lastly, we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters Blaze podcast. We are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. So we're going to ask you, sir, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Well, I've been taking mostly iced tea, unsweetened, mainly because I'm a diabetic, and nowadays you can't take tea with any sweetener whatsoever, because they're all going to kill you one way or the other.
So none of the substitutes like agave or stevia or any of that?
Sometimes stevia, but aside from that, no, I have to avoid most of them. Because, oh look, the pink stuff has chemicals, they'll destroy your metabolism, blah, blah, blah. After a while, I just stopped listening to the doctor and went, okay, fine. What colors are approved?
So do you like sun tea better or just regular brewed tea?
Regular tea. I usually buy it loose. I buy loose black tea, and I boil it up by the pot.
Okay. So sun tea gives it a slightly unique taste because you let the sun do its thing outside. You should try it this coming summer because now it's obviously winter again, and see if you like the difference. You might be surprised. It changes the flavor palette a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'll have to get the measurements down, but yeah, sounds like a plan.
Yeah, the measurements are going to be the same. Whatever you're doing in the pot is going to be the same. You're just putting it in a clear plastic jar essentially outside. So, all right, we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the book that brought us here. And with that,
across 1,000 battlefields and 1,000,000 wars, there is always a question. What do you do when all the chips are on the table? Do you run? Try to find salvation in the arms of an easy peace? Or do you stand and fight and send your enemies into whatever hole they crawled out of? On Deadly Ground, a heroic Last Stand anthology, has 10 stories addressing that question. Each character faces the impossible in different ways, but all will be tested before the day is done. Can they earn a heroic victory amongst the endless eternity of space, or are they doomed to fall into obscurity?
all right, thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And with that, we are here to talk about your Land and Sea novel. And so first off, obviously I mentioned in the lead up to this, this is Blaine Pardoe's Land and Sea universe. This is what he is listing as season 2, which is book 10 in the series. Yours is a standalone novel, or will you be writing sequels to this?
Yes. I have written it so that it can be read independently of the main series, and I'm already started working on book 2.
Okay. So how did you get invited to write in his universe?
Well, do you remember the St. Tommy NYPD series?
I do. We talked about that. That was a fun series.
Oh, yeah. Well, Blaine read the first book or so, might have gotten a few books in, and went, okay, well, Declan knows how to deal with religion stuff. And in one of his other books, I believe it's book 5, he had an offhand mention of the Pope declaring a crusade against the alien hordes. Well, he took one look at the St. Tommy series and said, well, if anybody's going to lead a crusade, we can probably get Declan to write the book. And it was an interesting rabbit hole from there.
like the little details on this cover. So I don't know what this says, if this is supposed to be Russian or it looks kind of Cyrillic in this writing alphabet. I don't know what it says. But then you've got the Crusader cross on the knee panel. Even the little detail about the pilot in the cockpit that you can see. I'm loving this cover. And you've got, I'm assuming this is a Chicago flag, it looks like?
It is. Since the premise of the series is around the aliens have been hiding in the oceans for like Godzilla, and I would compare book one to the original Gojira in terms of pacing and what exactly are we fighting? So book one was everything's hiding in the water. So we're going to have to fight aliens on water-based cities. I had a few up my sleeve. Into the process of elimination, it wound up in Chicago. And the real challenging part was making Chicago worth defending. Because it's been fun. And I was writing this 2 years ago before any current Michigan. And this current mech, they are referred to as Ashers. In the book, it fell off the back of a truck. So, a Russian truck.
So, for those that don't understand the land and sea lore, is this a one world government at this point, or do nation states, as we understand them, still exist?
Oh, nation states very much still exist. Everybody has to fight. The aliens are referred to most commonly as the fish, because I come up with an actual alien name. Like, they're coming out of the water. They're the fish. And everyone's pretty much on their own. And due to things that happened within the history, book one takes place in 2039. NATO is a little bit on shaky ground as it is. So, yeah, everybody's on their own. And there are some nation states that are trying to fight the next war, assuming, oh, well, once we get rid of these aliens, maybe we're going to be the ones on top. At which point, the proper response is, how about you fight the freaking aliens first?
So are the aliens fighting with technology, or you mentioned Godzilla kind of a factor, or are they the weapon themselves?
A little bit of all the above. We have not actually made, by book 10, there has been no actual communication with the aliens. They just showed up, started trashing things, and nobody knows why they're here, or aside from, it looks like they're here to exterminate humans. And a lot of their weaponry is organic in nature or grown into some of the aliens. They have some alien, quote, species, and I use the term loosely, are actually kind of organic 3D printed. So otherwise they wouldn't be able to exist because of the laws of physics. Godzilla, for example, is physically impossible because of just how big he is versus gravity. Technically, he should be just compressing himself to, work. But the aliens are doing a lot of genetic experimentation, and there are some horrors coming up that are good. We have not gotten into body horror yet, but some of these aliens look like Dr. Mengele would be going, that's too far. Stop.
So you haven't gotten to the point in this part of the story arc of the larger universe where you're potentially incorporating technological concepts from the alien race.
That actually starts happening somewhere around book 3 under the heading of, we need a proper power source to make the really not a mech, the Ashers, actually have more longevity, and part of that is scavenging alien technology and figuring out exactly how they're running. And a lot of it is biofuel cells and other things that I don't quite know the details of because I don't have the Bible in front of me. But some of the aliens are, wow, this is a giant lobster with a scorpion tail, and their primary weapon is a pressurized acid cutter. So, not pleasant.
Okay. So for your part of the story, do you obviously this stands alone? You could read just this novel. Are there going to be follow-on novels with these characters, or was this a one-off in his world?
This is the start of a series. Um, I'm working on book 2 as we speak,
Okay.
and I'm going to have to talk to Blaine a little bit in advance because he had one idea for a sequel. I had another idea already started because I pour easily and I started writing the book before he even started talking to me about it.
Okay. So, but there will be more, and you're currently writing them as we speak.
Oh yeah.
So, does this
having a lot
only
of fun.
because you mentioned aliens? Does this take place on Earth mainly, or do you take it to the stars?
Right now it's on the stars because step 1 is the alien bastards are here and we have to get rid of them. Uh, the series is scheduled to go on for a while. If I understand correctly, and I may not, step 1 is getting these bastards off the planet. Step 2 is finding out where they came from and hunting them down. But I could be misremembering.
Okay. Was there anything about this universe that you liked the most when you were playing in this as a playground, sandbox? What part was the most fun for you?
Well, in this universe, Blaine has made drones more commonplace, and I had a lot of fun with those. Although I got to the point where, well, gee, a drone is just a remote control vehicle. So why don't we just take a thermobaric explosive, for those who don't know, it's a fireball. Just to leave it at that. Let's just take a thermobaric explosive and put it into one of those giant Hot Wheels cars. Like, oh look, you're a walking tank. That's cute. Here, have a giant fireball. So I had a lot of fun with that, with some physics, and like I said, I've been getting into a lot of technological, military technology history, and let's just say that I had some fun once I learned that the original bunker busters were, well, missiles filled with concrete. I had some fun with that. I actually had to talk to a friend of mine who's a physicist just to get the math right.
So you wrote this as obviously the Pope is doing another crusade. So is this the Vatican army? Is this part of the American army? Is this an independent militia?
All the above, actually. In Blaine's world, it looks very much like the pre-9/11 army, post-Clinton military funding massacre. So a lot of the fighting has to be from local militias set up from the civilian population because, well, gee whiz, LA's been hit, New York, the East Coast has been hit, the West Coast has been hit, and everyone has left to go. Everyone has left to go fight there. Yeah, nobody's attacking Chicago. Who cares? We're just going to head off. Well, that's nice. That just leaves everybody else to fend for themselves. So you've got local militia, And Blaine in his series has cycles. They're basically asides to go away from the main storyline to show you other places on the planet.
Okay.
What I wound up doing with my asides were, well, gee whiz, now what's the Vatican going to do? What's the logic behind declaring a crusade? Because it's been a while. How do you fund the crusade? And let's face it, if you're going to start pawning things like Vatican museum pieces, how the hell do you do that? Answer, very, very carefully and on the quiet and on the black market, and you hope that nobody notices that this chair is 500 years old with the papal crest on it. Things like that.
So does the Swiss Guard, I think, is the one that famously guards the Pope. And
Yep.
it's standing, I think it's one of the longest standing military units, isn't it?
It is.
So does that get to play? Because I mean, I know they spend a lot of time training how to do, march around with their sticks, and they never get to really play with them. Even though most people don't realize they're trained like proper soldiers with proper weapons too. Although we think of them as the ceremonial unit that they are.
Well, the brightly colored comic opera costumes they march around in, they have a lot of room in them, and apparently, well, they're Swiss, so they've got a lot of HKs, MP5s, and those costumes cover a multitude of sins. And
in addition to that, what we see are the ones that are the forward-facing units of the Vatican Guard, and that doesn't account for who's in the rafters, so to speak, the same unit. And so, because there's actually a pretty decent documentary about what it takes to become one. It was filmed along the lines of the ones about how to join the French Foreign Legion and their training cycle, because there are some parallels. I know the Legion would say they're better, obviously, because they've got more real world experience. And I'm not comparing them as far as a fighting force, because the Vatican unit is as yet untested. It's largely a police force in a ceremonial outfit, but they do go through a lot of modern equipment testing or training. They are patrolling outside of what you see with the plainclothes stuff. And so the reason I mention that is there's potentially room for them in this new crusade. Do you play with those people in your story?
Oh, yeah. They play a role, and, well, let's just say I wound up getting the Pope into power armor. I had fun.
Oh, nice. So the Pope Mobile goes kinetic.
Oh, yeah.
That's a tagline for you right there.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, hey, I when you consider just how many different vehicles are brought to you by, let's call them the military-industrial complex just for fun, the people who brought you several of the cats, Norman Grumman is, they make several fire planes. They also make mail trucks.
The one that gets me is Oshkosh, that makes kids' clothing, also makes military equipment, and Mattel.
Yeah. But hell, even Samsung makes weapons and missiles.
Although at least Mattel makes sense, because they make toys for grown-ups too, I guess, is how you look at the weapons.
Oh, yeah.
So is this, with your main character in your asides, is the main character the Pope in his or is it his agent in the form of whoever's in the cockpit of this awesome looking mecha?
It's going to be the guys in the mecha. The Pope has his own action sequence.
Cool.
But since everything takes place on the ground in Chicago, I have three main characters. Because it's a crusade, I needed a priest. And let's just say that when I was taking my philosophy degree, we had a lot of seminarians. At least one was a veteran from whom I learned the saying, Semper Fi, do or die, kill, kill, kill. So he was becoming a monk.
Interesting combination. Now, when were you going to college where you would have met him?
St. John's University. I went in, that was in 2003.
So he might not even have been a combat veteran at that point.
Yeah, he might have been a little bit old,
Yeah, so
But
that might have just been, I mean, depending on his age, he could have caught, I guess, first Gulf War, maybe some of the policing actions in between. So I'm not saying he couldn't have seen action, but
mhm. Oh, I know better than to ask a veteran. So,
no, it's
what
one
did
of
you
those
see
ones
action?
where the famous picture of the chaplain that, so there was a ranger, and his last name starts with a C, and I can't remember.
Kane.
Was that?
You might be thinking of the priest they have referred to as Killer Kane.
No, this
He's a
guy
Viet.
was he was a ranger turned chaplain, and I think he was Baptist. But
Oh, okay.
when you look at his awards though in his dress uniform, it's like, oh, he was stacking bodies for Jesus, because I mean he's got all these combat awards and then the cross right over it where his branch insignia would be. And so there's something a little bit awe-inspiring when you see the chaplain that's like out doing the things before he was doing the things, right?
Oh yeah.
I've been on a few of those fun runs where it's like, okay, chaplain, all right. And then the others, it's like, oh, okay, Padre, you stay in the back. So it's the dichotomy of the two can sometimes be fun to play with.
And sometimes it's praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
Which was famously World War II Pearl Harbor. And then there's the famous one from the Patriot. Sometimes you got to protect the flock by killing the wolves when the preacher goes off to war. I don't know if that's paraphrasing anybody or just the movie director, but
Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century pointed out, yes, the bishop has a shepherd's staff. It is to herd the sheep and to crack some wolf skulls. So, yeah, that's not a new concept.
okay, it's not surprising me that it's him. Oh, Jeff Strucker, Struecker is the guy's name. Strucker. He was an Army Ranger at Mogadishu, and he prayed during the thing. They feature him in the movie too, in the book. But he said if he made it out, he'd turn his life around, and he did. He became a chaplain. But he was at the Mogadishu stuff, Black Hawk Down, famously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you see some with those kind of awards as a chaplain when they kind of change things up a little bit at the end. It hits a little differently,
Oh, yeah. The one I know, Father Kane, was Vietnam, and I ran into him at the Macon dinner for the Fighting 59th. Sorry.
Okay. So one of the things that makes Mecca unique is oftentimes while it's one man operating them, it's several men to maintain them, right? You need a maintenance group to make these work. And sometimes the shenanigans that go behind the scenes with the grease monkeys can be as entertaining and as chaotic as the battles themselves, right? Like, because if everybody's scrambling for bullets, then you want it for yours, not Tommy in the back. You got room for fun to lighten up the darker scenes. So did you play with any of the characters that are maintaining the nice mech we're looking at, or did that kind of happen in the periphery as you focused on the fighting?
That happened in the periphery. I was so wrapped up in trying to make certain I got the actual mech combat down that would have been a distraction for me. Blaine does this much better. But then again, Blaine's been doing this a lot longer than I have. I don't know. For those of you who don't know me, I am a professional civilian. While I do have you see some of those memes where it's like, you may be a veteran if, I usually wind up checking those boxes, and I've never been to combat. But, and I do have a dark sense of humor. It's like, do I have a dark sense of humor? Well, is, TBI just adult shaken baby syndrome? Of course it is. But so I wound up trying to get a lot of the details of infantry combat down. I had to work because I can copy a John Ringo. Would probably be more likely to end up as a Richard Sharp novel, where it's like, yeah, 18th century tactics doesn't work here. So I wound up working a lot on that to get those details down. So I wound up missing interplays like what you're referring to.
Okay. So I did look up real quick. So Father Timothy King was a U.S. Army Catholic chaplain, and he was at Battle of Mogadishu, but he was in the rear doing with the 10th Mountain. Not to say he didn't, I don't know his career, but he was actually at Mogadishu. So that I could see the confusion from you. That makes sense. So with the combat, like obviously being aware of the battle space matters. So when you do this, when you're telling these stories, are you picturing it in your head? Did you lay out the terrain and then, little figurines, a la wargaming? Or was it just theater of the mind? How did you track it in your mind? Did you use a tabletop, or what do they call that, sand table?
Oh, I have a 2-screen setup. One screen, writing the document. Second screen, Google Maps.
Okay.
I've also been to Chicago a few times. My wife.
And you lived to tell the tale. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this was a while back. So I knew the geography. I didn't know, the shooting patterns. My wife evacuated from Chicago in 2015. So her memories were even fresher than mine were. But between the two of us, we had a better idea of the layout and basically how the battle space is going to proceed. Keep in mind, the shoreline is the front line. And then you realize that Chicago's shoreline is 29 miles long.
Oh,
so that was fun.
And then you got to think sometimes mechs can cover a lot of ground, but that doesn't mean they can cover a lot of ground effectively if they're also trying to intently scan for threats, because you can't be everywhere at once. And so, there's limitations. Even if you have heightened capabilities, there's still limitations.
Oh, yeah. And even though they don't have the ability to bilocate, a lot of the scanning of the battle space is done, in this case, by drones.
Okay.
And with a command and control center, in this case, I hijacked Dominican University's computer lab. And, well, let's just say that there were a lot of programmers that wound up getting involved, because it's like, well, gee whiz, we can kill aliens by drone? Cool! Let's rack up a kill streak! So...
yeah, if you look at the screen, dear listener, if you're listening, or if you're not listening and you're watching, click on the link for his book. And if you open it in a different screen where you just look at the cover image and you zoom in, you can actually see the heads-up display that's lighting up the glass cockpit that you could sort of opaquely see through. That would be the data that he's talking about being fed. Like they went to that level of specificity on the book cover, and I absolutely love that. Down to the bad welds.
Yeah, the cover art was great on these.
Yeah, I am absolutely loving whoever did your cover art. It is the level of details. Somebody who knows a little bit of their way around mechanics, because nobody who didn't would think, let me add a few bad welds here from repair jobs that were done on the fly, right? Most people, when they want to add combat damage, they'll throw a dent in there, maybe scrape the paint. Nobody ever thinks to add bad weld jobs because they fixed it in the field.
Yes, and for all I know, well, it's Wargate, so who knows how much input they had from Nick Cole and Jason Anspaugh on the cover.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when this unit happens, it's localized. How mobile are the mecha in this universe? Because obviously every mecha franchise that has them is going to have their own lore, their own capabilities. So speaking specifically on the land and sea universe, are these ones with jump jets and hover jets? Are they limited by, bipedal mobility?
They are strictly bipedal, and they don't do melee.
So it's they're guns at a distance, and as fast as they can run.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The military unit that are these mech units, are they operating as solo combatants, a la the Greeks at Troy? Are they operating as hunter-killer squads like a tank unit might? How are they organized from a military standpoint?
Oh, much like any... They have a bunch of configurations, depending on the book, depending on the area of operation. And in this particular case, they had to operate as part of an infantry unit because, like with tanks, you bring in infantry because it would really ruin your day if somebody just ran up and dropped a Molotov cocktail down the hatch.
If you want to see, and we're not taking a political side, dear listener, but if you want to see what happens in a combat zone when you don't use combined arms properly, watch the shenanigans over there in Russia v. Ukraine. It is a case study in why you need combined arms support.
Oh, yeah. And let's just say a lot of the drone combat in Ukraine right now has come in handy as far as research.
Yeah, between that and what we saw during COVID with the Yakuza versus the Japanese police with the drugs. So basically, and we've told the story, so I won't belabor the point on the podcast because they've all heard it. But long story short, they did the lockdown, so it got harder to move the drugs. So they started moving the drugs via drones. So the cops started getting drones with nets to catch the drones with the drugs. So the Yakuza got drones with essentially jousting sticks to get the drones with the nets, so they're drones with the drugs, and you could see how this escalates. And at a certain point in time, I think they were having more fun, and the drugs were just the scorecard. And I'm just imagining like these two computer geek nerds having way too much fun, forgetting about the larger consequences of whatever their overlords are telling them to do. They're like, no, let me try this. Now, if you put jousting drones in a book, people are gonna be like, oh, that's so unreasonable. But Japan did it with the COVID. Ukraine, ironically, saw some of that with the Russia trying to take out the bomb drones from the Ukraine. It's one of those things where life imitates art, and sometimes you don't believe what really happened.
Oh, well, real life is so strange. You can't put most of it into books. You know?
Yeah. So they're operating with combat infantry support now. For their overhead, they've got drones for reconnaissance. Are there also aerial support in the forms of fighters, or do drones take that role too?
Within the lore of land and sea, basically the Air Force ran out of munitions within the first week of combat.
Oops.
Because basically these guys keep coming like they're the freaking Borg, or pick any horde. David Weber's, bugs from his series with Stephen White comes to mind. But, the fish basically just keep coming, and Air Force kept shooting, and then they ran out of ammo. So
suddenly you found all the. Now, did any of those pilots cross over in the lore to pilot the mechs?
Not yet, although probably sometime soon. Right now, there are two. For the combined services, both the Navy and the Air Force are kind of SOL in this universe. The Air Force ran out of munitions, and do you want to be a Navy trying to fight Godzilla?
Yeah, you want to bring the Ohio class battleships back on for something like that, a la the Pacific Rim, or Battleship the movie. So is this? Obviously the universe, the whole world is at war with these aliens,
right?
Your story focuses mostly on the on the U.S. side, specifically this religious organization in Chicago. Does the whole series focus mostly American focused, or does he have bits where they're all over the globe in various entities?
It is mostly American focused, but he's got a lot of detail about other places on the planet. One book was set in Greenland. My apologies. One book was set in Greenland. Funny enough, he wrote the book before Trump started talking about how we were going to annex Greenland. So it's like, wow, you've got timing. And he has an entire anthology based on different parts of the planet and how they are attacking the fish. And one of the themes of Blaine's series is humans are creative. Good luck getting rid of the cockroaches, you extraterrestrial buggers.
And I will say that for all, if you follow Blaine or Declan, sometimes they get political on their personal social medias. Their stories tend to stick really close to what the plot requires, and they don't pontificate without just to do so in the plot. So if it's political, it's from the point of view of whatever the character is, and not him just slamming his opinion down your throat. That's what Facebook's for. I can't. I know you've toned it way down because you've been too busy writing. But
Blaine and I both believe that the only things that should be in the book are the things that add to the story.
And that's what I was getting at is you don't have to worry about that. I don't, even the American card-carrying members of the Communist Party should find stuff they love about this, because who doesn't want to see Godzilla become dinner? Oh, that's a good question for you. Do they ever get to eat the aliens as steaks?
I have asked Blaine mainly because I know there are aliens that have invaded New Orleans. Okay, yeah. You and I both know the Cajuns will eat anything, or at least try.
If it doesn't eat them first.
Yes, Blaine hasn't gotten back to me on that one yet.
Even if it eats them first, they'll still get gout trying to eat their way out.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta love the Cajuns. Okay. So in this universe, when the invasion starts, are mechs already a thing, or were they developed post awareness to fight these?
The Asher's mechs. Sorry, I keep mixing up my terminologies. The Ashers are at least 10 years old by this point. And again, Blaine wrote these a while ago, and he has a 2030 Alaska war where the United States is fighting Russia in Alaska with these Ashers.
Okay.
So they're already established, and it's just a matter of, well, we haven't fought a war in 10 years. And oh look, no war, the military becomes brass heavy, nobody has done upkeep on these damn machines. So everyone has a very steep learning curve, especially on fixing them and making new ones.
That's what I was going to ask, because logistics matter too, right? Like being able to source your equipment, to source the bullets, to source the raw materials to make said equipment becomes very important in a war, and that's sometimes hard to do when you're under a planetary invasion.
Oh, trust me, one of the things that I had to talk Blaine into when I was first doing the outline, since this was book 10, he felt it very urgent to get into the combat as soon as possible. My problem was everything I have ever learned about the military, I have learned basically by reading John Ringo or David Weber. So my first thought was, how are we getting all these bullets? How are we getting all of these various and sundry munitions? And a lot of that was the first half of the book, just on, we're going to fight this on our own because the military is tied up. Where do we get all the toys from? And it's freaking Chicago. How many guns are in Chicago legally?
Yeah.
And sure, there are, right now, in real life, there are about 100,000 gang members in Chicago. Even if every one of them has an automatic weapon, how many are staying to fight the aliens? How many are leaving? And how many are taking their toys with them?
Yeah, and then the other question is what's the compatibility? Because that's one of the reasons NATO standard is a thing. And so when Bubba loot drops, because Bubba ain't here no more, you can pick his stuff up and keep going. Now, when everybody's got their own fancy caliber, so they can do their cool whiz bang stuff, suddenly his loot drop isn't very useful to you unless you also grab his rifle. And constantly swipping your rifle because you're running out of bullets every time you turn around, because you've got like a dozen different rifles and all of them are half loads. Right? That becomes a thing. And so when you're relying on non-standard munitions in the form of like the gang artillery, as it were, that becomes a logistical nightmare as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because now it's a constant scramble of, it's like any video game where like, let me kill somebody so I can liberate his equipment because I'm on my last magazine. And that works great in a game when you can pause it, but not so much in the middle of a real firefight.
Oh yeah, and most video games, loot drop pickup is instantaneous. Real life, not so much.
Especially when you're talking about something as massive as a mecha.
Uh-huh.
So is this actually one of the Ashers, or is this a different model that's on the screen?
Oh, this is one of the Ashers from the book. I made a point of getting the models right because, again, I'm one of those people who I don't know much about much, so I'm going to try to be as accurate as possible by talking to people who know what they're talking about and by reading the manual. Blaine and Brent, who are both working on the series, are also making a role-playing game with minis and tabletops and etc. So it helped when they had an actual Bible. I got the Bible after I was done reading the book, but they had an actual Bible.
At one point in time, Blaine was selling miniatures on his own. And I don't remember where he was selling them, but I've seen them.
Well, they are now at the point where they are selling through their Patreon downloads. So you don't have to buy minis. You can just 3D print them at home.
Yeah, the 28 millimeter scale miniatures. You can buy them on the Wargate website.
Yep. And now that an Ender printer is cheaper than probably my monitors. Hell, they're probably cheaper than one of my monitors at this point, because an Ender 3 was $250 5 years ago. So God only knows what they are now.
But yeah, so you actually can get miniatures, and if you really wanted to do some sand tables on your own, you could wargame it literally. And pretty soon they'll give you the rule set.
Oh yeah, they're working on the rule set. They're coming up with new designs every day. They even have a portal through which, you can design your own mech and then share the mech designs through the official website.
Oh.
So it's a very interactive community. I just kind of smile and nod because 3D printing goes over my head. I know it's supposed to be easy. No, not for me. And but no, they are very active. They're very innovative. They all want to share. What's the new toy we can put together? Because these Ashers within the book series are modular, customizable. Because name me a war where the guy driving the plane, the truck, the tank have not customized it to their own specifications. Even in the sandbox, how much modification was done to a Humvee. I know of a few things off the top of my head where it's, yeah, well, they're not supposed to be APCs. They're just supposed to be glorified Jeeps. And then we have IEDs. So now we're going to do ad hoc armor. So, yeah, in this case, it's congratulations. You've got your mech, and over time, you're going to be changing your own mech. So they're using that with the miniatures. So they're having fun.
So with the first book is partly getting this militia unit, essentially this crusader unit out there, but is the second book in this arc with these characters, is it going to be jumping more into the battle and the plot, or is there an overarching plot outside of just see alien bad, alien dead?
Well, in both Blaine's overarching series and what I've got in my head, we're both trying to move towards, actually getting rid of the overall threat. Book one is assembling the militia and how do we actually fight off these guys, since literally nobody at this point has actually defeated them. It's like, well, we've got battle lines and New York, LA, Texas is doing best because, you know, their idea of the Geneva Convention is the Geneva checklist.
Well, does it apply to alien creatures?
Uh,
They are not signatories on the Geneva Convention.
no, they are not. In the book series, Texas realizes this. Some of the upper brass, they're not as smart. Um, there are some elements of Blaine's books where I think, if you ever read the Richard Sharp novels,
I have and loved it.
yes, Richard Sharp has more respect for officers than Blaine does.
Heh.
And when you consider some of the things he's done to officers, that's saying something.
So are you going to throw in there at least one now that's soldiering just for Richard?
I'm sorry, please repeat.
I said, are you going to throw in now that we mentioned Richard Sharp? We have to throw in at least one in your next novel. Now that's soldiering to honor Sharp and Sean Bean.
Well, in book 2, I already have a lot of riflemen.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that series, and historians got their knickers in a wad over the tap loading. So because they said, oh, that's not safe, they wouldn't do that. Well, first off, soldiers will do whatever works in the field, because in a pinch, the quicker and the more often you get rounds down range, the more likely you are to live. So they actually had historic, not reenactors, because that's more LARPing. I'm not saying that in a derogatory sense, but people that do, they call it living history, I think is the name of it, where they actually live the lifestyle to do as a research methodology. So they're actually historians doing it. And they actually did testing on the tap method, but when they went to pull the trigger, they obviously had a string they're pulling, so they're a safe distance, and it worked. Not a single misfire, not a single, like, it worked. So all of the people that was like, it would never work this way, like, well, I mean, practically it did. But
yeah, there's the manual, and then there's what we can get the damn thing to do.
And most people that have never, like, there's a difference between the person that designs the equipment and the guy that actually has to use it in the field. And
Always.
that is something that people who have never worked with their hands don't understand.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it's supposed to do X, Y, or Z according to the manual does not mean that's what happens in reality. So speaking of manuals and reality and such, this is going to be a horrible segue, but obviously mechs are heavy. So how does that factor in with what they're doing when they're moving around on asphalt and concrete roads and across bridges, etc.? Is that factored into your novel without spoilers?
Yeah, there are some spoilers there. Let's just say
so it
that
is factored in, but you can't give me the answer without spoilers. That's a good answer.
Correct. The short version is that, well, also just for the record, it's giant stompy robots on the streets of Chicago. If they leave more holes, will anyone notice?
Every time I see a pothole in the road, I'm remembering that one time at Scania when I was in Iraq. It's a fob halfway between Baghdad and the Kuwaiti border. So it's a halfway point for some of the early runs. And I reported some of these potholes on the base, and the combat engineer that was in charge of maintaining it said, and I quote, "Sergeant Handley, don't think of them as potholes. Think of them as inverted speed bumps." And then they proceeded to never fill them. And I'm like, sir, I think you have a second life as a VDOT employee. Virginia Department of Transportation, or any Department of Transportation, really, I don't think it matters the state. Because that's the kind of mentality you're describing.
Yep.
Now, so obviously your main character are the war fighters in this story. Do you play around either as point of view characters or as tertiary characters with the civilians that are stuck in Chicago when the stuff's happening? Because obviously not everybody can leave.
A lot of it has to do with interaction because, again, I since I do not have a military background, and I wound up recreating the wheel more than a few times because, ooh, this is cool, this is innovative. It's like, yeah, we learned this in the academy. It's like, so it's like, okay, fine, I reinvented the wheel. But in order to have dealing with the aliens, they never fall for the same trick twice. So I have to keep coming up with more innovative solutions. So one of my character is a lieutenant colonel, I believe. The other is a veteran who is now a priest. And third guy is, well, he works out of Virginia most of the time, and he's been fired more or less because he does a lot of foreign trips to Russia, and right now nobody needs a Russian spy. So he's got a lot of innovative approaches to things. So I wound up using a lot of MacGyverisms along the way. So yeah, there's a lot of civilian military interaction because you got to involve everybody because those are going to be your volunteers.
Well, and when it's a survival of the species, a lot of that is just going to happen by default.
Oh yeah,
people just don't want to die.
Correct. And in this case, it's the only people who are going to evacuate are those who live along the shoreline. Like, ooh, I have this nice beachfront property that's going to be turned into a car wreck if I stay around here. So we're going to be leaving. But as you get further and further from the water, fewer and fewer people are going to leave because, they aren't going to get around here, are they? Like, that's usually the point when, they decide to skip over 5 miles of going inland and just crash down on your suburb. But we haven't gotten to that point yet.
So these aliens, do we get any of their point of view? What makes them tick? Why they're doing what they're doing?
Not at this point in the series. I'm sure Blaine has an idea of what they're doing and what rhyme and reason are behind them, but nobody else knows, and not even the reader.
I mean, he's a pretty... I mean, I've talked to him before. He tends to think things out. He spends a lot of... I've seen him... He's got son in the military, I think, or at least family member, because I've seen him on some of the bases crawling into tanks at his age because he wanted to see how cramped it was, and watching like one of the best Ranger competitions live so he could see what so he does the hands-on experience. He takes the old Tom Clancy answer, I've got a library card, and then he goes, but I also can get a visitor pass. So he thinks it's kind of the next step. So I do think he's got answers. I just wasn't sure if we've seen those answers yet.
Not yet. Although now that you mentioned that, all I want to do is say, hi, can you get me into the museum on Fort Sill, where they keep the artillery?
So I bet you could reach out to the public affairs office and make something happen. And if not you, maybe because he's got a bigger name than either of us.
Probably.
The one thing I will tell you, dear listener, because some of you like me, we read stories in 30 years for various reasons. Wargate Publication does audiobooks of almost every... I haven't seen a single one they produced yet that didn't have an audiobooks to include this one. It is listed on the Amazon page. I don't know if the audiobook is... if that is a pending because it's uploaded but it's not ready, or you can get it today. But at least there will be one. Yeah, the audiobook is pending for this one, but it's but there will be one in the future. So if you prefer to read with your ears, that is an option and will be. But the rest of the series that predate this, they all have those audiobooks. So you can buy the back catalog and get caught up. Some time.
My book is book 10, and they have up to book 8 in audio right now, and I know for a fact that book 9 is being worked on.
Cool. So is there anything before we wrap this up, because I'm getting to the point where my questions are leading you to spoilers, and while I don't care about spoilers, there are some people that still like to be surprised. The one benefit of having a memory like Swiss cheese after the brain damage is nothing was spoiled because I'll just forget. It's like 50 dates up in here.
You could also just ask me questions and cut them out later.
Well, we can just do that before after we hit record. So is there anything that we haven't asked you that you think readers need to know?
Not particularly, although I do have a little bit of fun because there is, at one point, since this is Chicago, and, well, Detroit has their giant statue of RoboCop, I decided that There is an ugly, ugly Picasso statue in Chicago. I got rid of it, and I replaced it with a 20-foot tall statue of Harry Dresden.
And if you want to, speaking of RoboCop, if you look at the actuator joints on this, it definitely looks like that robot War Machine that you got 3 seconds to comply from RoboCop. It looks
Ed 209.
Yeah, it looks like that. It's got that vibe to me. If you're listening, and again, if you are listening, click the link in the show notes to check the book cover out on Amazon and give it a read while you're at it. But this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. So do your part. It really does make a difference, especially for small presses and independent publishers. Wargate is no longer independent, but I will say they still qualify as a small press. And so those reviews really do make a difference. One thing Wargate does, and Galaxy's Edge Press, they're two same owners, two different companies. One of the things both of them will do is you can buy directly from them if you care about ownership rights. And if you own it from them, you can leave a review on their website as well. And if you buy it on Google or wherever you buy it, leave a review. It really does make a difference. So with that, obviously links will be in the show notes. But Declan, how can we find you on the Wild Interwebs?
If you type in Declan Finn, you'll trip over me eventually, as long as you skip over the Irish soccer players. I'm on X, on Declan Finn Books. I'm multiple places on Facebook. It's just plain Declan Finn, both the page and my personal profile. If right now, if there is a social media platform, I'm on it, except for BitChute, because I can't figure out how to use that for the life of me. I logged in, and it's like, here's your Bitcoin. What?
BitChute doesn't have any coins associated. You're thinking of Odyssey.
I'll take your word on that. I
know, because I walked away from Odyssey for that very reason.
That one I've never actually tried. I will give you that one.
But it was so confusing. Like, I don't have time to make figuring out your platform my full-time job. So pass.
Yeah, but this was at least 4 years ago at this point.
Well, I haven't been on there, so that might have been something they did 4 years ago when you left. I know things like that always evolve. So with technology, it's not just what, but when.
Oh yeah, and since my wife is a computer programmer, she's got lots of comments on user interfaces.
So all of those links will be in the show notes, dear listener. Has this writing experience inspired you to want to write your own universe full of mecha?
Well, I already have some mecha in my White Ops sci-fi series. I just don't concentrate a lot on them. My main goal with mecha is to give mechs to the bad guys and have my heroes try to get around them.
Yeah, you could take like Warhammer 40K, that concept, and then take that as instead of making it the evil, I don't know, make it Catholic inspired, and you could have the Crusades look totally different. And heresy means something entirely. I could see you doing a thing with that and having fun.
Eventually, once I plow through all the other book ideas I've got.
Yeah, because it's never a shortage of ideas. It's the trick is turning them off. All right.
Oh,
so
yeah.
This is the point, dear listener, where I remind you you can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree / Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree / Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes on the people. Save the shenanigans from Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/AuthorJRHandley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/AuthorJRHandley. Be sure to leave a comment in the comment section. It's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee, bring coffee till it pours out of their eyeballs, and we will swim away on a river of caffeinated goodness. If you want some of that coffee, brand coffee, link is in the show notes. Discount code is Podcast Grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, we'd like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, we will hit the end button. Wait for it. Wait for it.